Drug prices are in the news. Surprise, surprise. That's been true for a long, long time, and it's only getting worse. So let's take a look at a few of these. Okay, here's one. A new drug due to be approved by the FDA in a couple of months for epilepsy. It's actually a wonderful advance. For about 20% of the people with this horrible problem, it calms their seizures right down. Called Epidiolex, made from CBD oil, that is cannabidiol. In fact, it will be the first officially approved use of a marijuana-derived drug. That means they're going to have to remove marijuana from the Schedule I classification, which states by law that it has no medical uses at all. So, yay, great advance. How much does it cost? $32,500 per year. And no, your insurance may well not cover that. Now I have some CBD oil right here. I just sent away for $30, 100 milligrams. Maybe Epidiolex is especially pure. Maybe it's 1,000 times more pure. Maybe you need a few more bottles of this, or maybe there's some secret reason why it costs 1,000 times as much. We're going to take a look at a few of those reasons, maybe. Or this. Australia has just announced that it's going to reduce the price of the Hep C treatment Meviret to $39.95 in Australian dollars for the full 8-week course. Great drug. The new cures for Hep C are among the few drugs produced in recent decades that can really be called cures. A full course of the drugs, for most people, eliminates the virus from the body. Amazing. In fact, epidemiologists are talking about the possibility of wiping out Hep C the way they wiped out smallpox. Oh, the price before Australia reduced it? 50,000 Australian dollars. In US dollars, 26,400. But that's cheap. The other wonderful, marvelous Hep C cures are priced in the US from $75,000 to $95,000. Costs so high that Hep C treatment alone has forced a number of state Medicaid programs to go to their legislatures begging for special appropriations just for these drugs. Now, while most of these drugs are selling in generic or off-branded versions in places like Egypt and India for 1% of the U.S. price or less. Oh, and here we have the image of a congressman getting a call while in the Rose Garden at the White House at some ceremony, letting him know as a board member of a drug startup that a drug the company is testing that the congressman has invested in has failed its FDA test. The congressman allegedly calls his son, they dump their stock in the company, and now they are both charged with insider trading. Because coming up with new drugs and making them is a source of such fantastic wealth that the whole process invites corruption. Oh, and curiously, in the middle of the opioid crisis, blamed at least in part on some drug companies shoveling painkillers out the door at alarming rates with few, if any, controls, now we are told there are drug shortages especially of painkillers. In hospitals across the country, they are scrambling to secure enough supply so that you don't wake up screaming from your hip surgery or hernia repair. And the pharmaceutical industry is telling us the way out of this crisis of supply is to raise the prices so that they will have the incentive to make more. There's something screwy here. The CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is putting out new rules ordering doctors to use step therapy, that is, to try every less expensive alternative before they can get paid for the more expensive alternative, even if the doctors know that the cheaper drugs won't work in your case, because the expensive ones can be in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands for a course of treatment. Okay, here's another one. Here's a lady who has an ischemic event, a mini stroke, on a trip to China. She gets treatment there. She comes back and gets a prescription for heart medicine, a generic medication called telmisartan, from her doctor. But that's all right. She's covered by insurance. What's your copay? $285 per bottle. Goes to Costco. Happens to ask the Costco pharmacist how much it would cost if she just paid for it there out of pocket. $40, full price. Weird? normal. Normal, normal, normal. Okay, here's Nostrum Laboratories with the decades-old antibiotic nitrofurantoin. Considered an essential pharmaceutical by the World Health Organization, it's hiking its price overnight from $474.75 per bottle to $2,392 per bottle, like nearly 5 times as much. Why? Did it suddenly become massively more expensive to produce? No, not at all. In fact, its CEO, a man named Nirmal Mulya, told us why. It was due to a new moral principle that he apparently just discovered. He said it is a moral requirement to sell the product for the highest price. He explained that he was in this business to make money, which in his formulation translates to make as much money as he can. Yes, those are quotes. And now, for the first time in this war on cancer that stretches back to the Nixon presidency, we have actual cures for some types of cancer. Pills that you can take that will wipe out one type of cancer or another. Oh yeah, the punchline? At prices from $370,000 to $475,000. Does the phrase, your money or your life, come to mind? Oh yeah, now many people are covered, but even the copays and deductibles can be life-altering. Some people actually do go without their cancer drugs and just die because of the costs. Many people with insulin-dependent diabetes now are actually rationing their insulin because of the costs. Rationing your insulin can kill you. So seriously, why? Why do pharmaceutical companies charge so much for some drugs? Why are the prices so insanely variable? You can't buy a Rolls Royce in India for $300. Why can you buy a Hep C drug there or in Egypt or elsewhere for 1% of the U.S. price? Okay, some short answers. The first short answer is, I don't know. I don't know because nobody knows. Oh, there are drug pricing experts who work for the drug companies, for the drug distributors, for governments, for consulting companies, for pharmacy benefit managers, who could probably trace out the processes involved in setting a price for a given drug to a given doctor, hospital, or individual under different types of coverage, different buying packages. It's a whole career you could have figuring out drug prices. But even these experts are only working with the information they have within the silo in which they can see them. A few years back, I was set to give a talk about the future of healthcare to an international pharmaceutical industry research association. I asked for a conference call of some top experts to help me understand the drug market better. So I had maybe a half dozen of these real inside experts on the phone. I asked them to explain to me how the prices of drugs are set. They did. They described how the drug companies will set the price of a new drug, then negotiate with certain governments over what they will pay, and then other governments and organizations will set their price based on those prices, based on that negotiated prices, plus certain adjustments, different arrangements. Others will decide not to buy the drug at all because it costs too much, or the cost-benefit ratio is not good enough. Then the drug distributors will work deals with mass quantities to repackage and relabel them and resell them to hospitals and medical centers at discounted prices with special financing attached. And then the pharmacy benefit managers working with insurance companies will work deals for their clients to buy the drugs at a special price, which may be a discount and may not, at the same time that they are actually taking money from the drug companies to make sure those drugs are in the formulary, the list of covered drugs. Oh, they insist this is not a kickback, it's a rebate. But there it is. And taking money from the insurance companies too for getting them the special price. And engaging in spread pricing, often charging the client many times what they are reimbursing a pharmacy for a given drug. Maybe, for instance, charging a county jail $200 a bottle for antipsychotic pills, then reimbursing the local pharmacy $6 for filling the prescription and pocketing the other $194. And somehow, over time, it turns out that any real discounts fail to reach the person taking the pills or getting the shots or the government or facility paying for them. Now, I'm a reasonably smart guy. It was a mind-boggling session. So I asked the experts on this call whether they had all this written down somewhere so that I could study its ins and outs in more detail. Okay, sure, they said. They sent me a 45-page PDF. I read the whole thing, made notes, and finally, no, I still could not make it make sense. So the first short answer is that nobody really knows. It's all wheels within wheels and smoke and mirrors and overlapping loops of payments and discounts and rebates and special deals. The second short answer is because they can. These are private companies. They can decide whether this is a $10 drug or a $475,000 drug, and then start all these negotiations and discounts. They don't have to sell it to any particular market if they don't get a high enough price. They can decide whether to produce the drug at all. And it's not even about whether they hold the patent or if it's out of patent or a generic. If they are the only ones producing an old out of patent drug, they can raise the price, and we just have to pay it. Free market mavens say, well, then anyone else can go into competition at the lower price. It's not that simple. Even if it's generic or out of patent, you still have to get the FDA approval to get into the market. And that takes a while, it takes money. Then you have to gear up a whole production lab and distribution network. And after you've done all that, the company that raised the price can just as easily drop the price to force you back out of the market. Drug companies say that at whatever price, the drug is cheaper than the alternative. Not to mention, I should add, less agonizing and deadly. But you know what? That's just like The Godfather. It's an offer you can't refuse. You want to live, you want to end the awful pain, you find the money. In other contexts, we call that extortion, and it's a felony. Drug companies say it costs them a lot to develop these drugs. They say, in essence, if you want these fabulous new cures, the cost has to cover the billions it costs to develop them, and the years of research that did not produce a great new drug. Well, sure, at least for new drugs, but number one, we don't actually know that. In fact, it's likely that the drug companies do not know that with any accuracy, because the drug companies do not do the kind of detailed accounting you need to attribute costs correctly to any given product. This is a lot like Hollywood accounting, where many of the biggest blockbuster successes seem to never produce any actual profit somehow. The second is, how much, really? A decade ago, the industry used to say, their representatives used to tell me, that it cost $15 billion to come up with a new drug. This was not based on any real data because, of course, the real data was trade secrets all the way down. Finally, in 2014, the industry authorized a Tufts University study to come up with a justifiable estimate, based, of course, on this secret data, which is not released. But okay, it said, okay, not $15 billion, $2.5 billion. At the time, even the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline, one of the world's largest drug companies, said that even $1 billion was a myth, just blowing smoke. And keep in mind that the drug companies actually spend more promoting their drugs than making new ones. And Médecins Sans Frontières, the Doctors Without Borders, who supports not-for-profit drug development and developed some drugs of their own, said that's ridiculous. From their own experience developing drugs, $50 million. Tops $186 million if you pay for all the failed attempts along the way. They say it's a tough business. Must be. Yet none of these add up to good reasons why the pharmaceutical industry should be, by many measures, consistently the most profitable industry anywhere, ever. Pharmaceuticals, new and better drugs, providing the right drugs, this is a national priority. It's essential to the health of the people of this country and of the world. I think of pharmaceuticals as part of the national infrastructure, undergirding the economy and the well-being of the nation. Yet we don't have a rational drug policy in the United States. The United States government, through Medicare, Medicaid, the federal employees, the military, the Veterans Administration, the Indian Health Service, is the largest single drug buyer on the planet by a large margin. Yet it is even forbidden by law to do the normal kind of negotiation with drug companies that other countries do as a matter of routine. Our laws and policies somehow seem to be designed for the comfort, profit, and independence of the pharmaceutical industry, not for the well-being of the nation. Well, what would work? Is there any policy that would recreate the drug market to actually provide drugs at prices that we and the health system can afford, while allowing the private companies that develop, manufacture, and distribute them to run a decent business with a good return on investment? Actually, there is. And we have done it before when a national emergency forced us to get creative. We will talk about this in the next video, which I will call something like, "Can we do something about these drug prices?" If you like this, like it down below. Sign up, subscribe to the channel, find me on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm Joe Flower.